The pack arrived to kill. They found their pups asleep on her chest, and the alpha made her Luna. The sun was dying behind the jagged trees of the cursed forest, spilling red and gold across the sky. A chill wind twisted through the branches, carrying whispers that only those who listened carefully could hear. Seraphine, she knelt beside a small stream, her hands pressed to the soft earth. She traced invisible patterns over the moss and stones, murmuring old words of protection her mother had taught her. Even though she was alone, she felt the presence of something watching her, waiting. Her hand rested lightly over her stomach, and a gentle weight reminded her of the life growing inside her. Twins. She had not expected them, not after everything she had endured. Yet here they were, moving quietly beneath her hands, as if they already sensed the danger that was creeping closer. She closed her eyes, letting the sunlight warm her face, but she could not shake the feeling of eyes upon her. The forest had been her sanctuary for many years, a place where the shadows were friends and the wind spoke truths no human dared to say aloud. But today, it felt different. The air carried tension, like the pause before a storm. Seraphine's ears twitched at every snapping twig and rustling leaf. The instincts that had kept her alive for so long screamed at her, warning her that she was no longer alone. Suddenly, a crack of a branch echoed through the trees. Seraphine froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The wind shifted, and with it came the unmistakable scent of wolves, strong, sharp, and commanding. Not ordinary wolves, but those of a pack that had been her family's enemy for generations. The pack had come for blood, for revenge for a grudge that had lasted centuries. Her breath caught as figures emerged from the shadows. Strong, lean, and deadly, they moved like the forest itself had birthed them. Their eyes gleamed in the fading sunlight, scanning the clearing for prey. The leader, he stepped forward, taller than any man she had seen, with eyes the color of storm clouds and hair dark as midnight. His gaze fell on her, and she felt a strange pull, fear, yes, but also a strange sense of recognition, as if he had stepped out of her own dreams. Seraphine's fingers tightened around the edge of her cloak. The pups inside her stirred, and a soft whimper escaped her lips. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering words of comfort, telling them they were safe, even as the pack closed in. The wolves stopped, freezing mid-step, their instincts torn. They had come to kill, yet something about the scene before them, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the protective aura surrounding her unborn twins, stilled their hearts. He moved closer, his boots silent against the forest floor. Every muscle in his body was tense, ready to strike, yet he hesitated. He knelt slightly, bringing his face closer to hers without touching her. "They are alive," he breathed, the words almost lost in the rustle of the leaves. There was awe in his voice, and a hint of something else, something dangerous and tender all at once. Seraphine looked up at him, her eyes wide, her body trembling not just with fear, but with the weight of responsibility she carried. She had always known her life was fragile, but now it seemed even more delicate, balanced on the edge of destiny. She had to protect the twins at all costs, even if it meant facing the very pack that had been her family's doom. The other wolves watched silently, some with suspicion, others with curiosity. They were warriors, hunters, killers, but the sight of new life had thrown them into confusion. They did not expect mercy, they did not expect awe. And yet here in this small clearing bathed in the dying sunlight, all they could do was pause. Eyes never left Seraphine's. He could sense her strength, quiet but unyielding, and he understood that she was no ordinary woman. Something about her presence demanded respect, even from someone like him. He had spent his life taking what he wanted by force, ruling through fear and strength. But now, faced with her, he felt something unfamiliar, a pull of curiosity, a flicker of wonder that he could not ignore. The wind shifted again, carrying with it the scent of danger. Seraphine knew that the pause would not last. The pack's instincts were not easily denied. Every shadow, every movement in the trees could hide an ambush. She looked down at the twins, feeling their tiny, unformed bodies stir under her hands. "I will protect you," she whispered, her voice steady despite the fear that clutched at her heart. "No matter what comes." He straightened, breaking the delicate tension in the clearing. His hand hovered near the hilt of a dagger strapped to his side, though he did not draw it. Instead, he studied her, as if trying to read the threads of fate that bound them together. "You are not afraid," he said softly, "not as I expected." There was both accusation and admiration in his tone. Most would have fled or fallen to their knees, but you— His voice trailed, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Seraphine met his gaze, feeling the weight of his words, the unspoken challenge behind them. She had learned to survive in a world that demanded strength from the weak, cunning from the vulnerable. But this was different. This was more than survival, it was a test of destiny, of choices that had been written long before she was born. She straightened her back, meeting his eyes fully. "I will not let harm come to them," she said, her voice firm, "even if it costs me everything." He studied her, a storm of conflicting emotions crossing his face. Rage, caution, awe, and something far more dangerous, interest. His hand flexed slightly, as if testing the air for a decision. He knew he could strike her down, end the twins' lives, and wipe away the risk that this woman represented. And yet, he did not. The clearing seemed to hold its breath. Birds had gone silent, the forest itself seemed to lean closer. Seraphine could feel the tension pressing against her chest, the warning of impending violence hovering like a shadow. And then, with a movement as smooth and silent as the night, Kale extended his hand, not to strike but as a gesture, a test of trust, a fragile connection between hunter and prey. Seraphine hesitated, her instincts screaming to flee, to fight, to hide. But something in his gaze, the unspoken promise, the subtle strength, made her pause. She had faced many dangers before, but never one like this, where fear and fascination collided. She did not reach for his hand, but she did not step back. Her body remained firm, her heart steady, though it raced with adrenaline and the unspoken possibilities that hung in the air. A distant howl echoed through the forest, sharp and urgent. The pack stiffened, their muscles taut, their instincts reminding them of the purpose that had brought them here. Eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to her. "This is only the beginning," he said, his voice low, carrying weight and a strange tenderness. "They will not stop, and neither will I if they threaten what you carry." Seraphine's heart pounded in her chest. She understood his meaning, not just the physical threat, but the silent challenge in his words. The twins, her life, her destiny, were now intertwined with this alpha, with this pack that should have been her enemy. And she knew, deep in her bones, that her choices from this moment forward would determine more than her survival. They would shape the fate of clans, of families, of bloodlines long thought broken. He turned, signaling to his pack. They moved silently, circling the clearing, protective and predatory at the same time. Seraphine could feel their tension, their readiness to act. She looked down at the twins again, their small movements reminding her of the fragile hope they represented. "I will fight," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "No matter what comes, no matter who stands in my way." And then, with a final glance that held both warning and awe, Kale stepped closer to her, his presence overwhelming yet oddly comforting. "You will be mine," he said softly, the words carrying weight she did not yet understand. Not as property, not as a possession, but as something stronger, something that the world has not yet seen. Seraphine swallowed, her body trembling not with fear but with anticipation, dread, and a strange spark of hope. She did not fully understand him or the path that lay ahead, but she knew one thing: the arrival of this pack, the presence of this alpha, had changed everything. Nothing would ever be the same again. The forest seemed to lean closer, shadows gathering around the clearing as if the world itself was watching. And in that moment, Seraphine understood that she was no longer alone. Her fate, the twins, and this alpha, Kale, were bound together by forces she could not yet name. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, a chill wind rustled the leaves, carrying whispers of prophecy, of danger, and of a bond that could not be broken. Seraphine tightened her hold on the twins, her eyes never leaving Kale's stormy gaze. She did not know what would come next, but she knew it would be unlike anything she had ever faced. And then Kale, he spoke again, a soft murmur that cut through the tension like a blade. "You are mine, and I will not let anything take you from me, or them." The twins stirred gently on her chest, and Seraphine felt the first real weight of her destiny pressing down. Her heart raced, her mind spun with fear and wonder, and she knew with certainty that this night was only the beginning of a story that would change everything, for her, for Kale, and for the world of the packs. The forest held its breath, and the shadows seemed to lean closer. The hunt had ended, but the story had just begun. The moon had risen high over the forest, casting silver light through the dense canopy. Every leaf shimmered like liquid light, and shadows danced around the clearing as though alive. Seraphine, she stirred awake, her eyes fluttering open to the soft rustle of the forest night. The twins, her precious babies, rested safely on her chest, their tiny hands moving in sleep. She felt their warmth and the rhythmic beating of their hearts, and for a moment a fragile calm settled over her. Yet the calm was only skin deep. Around her, the forest was quiet in an unnatural way, as though holding its breath. Seraphine's senses were alert, every nerve alive with tension. She had survived countless dangers before, but this place, Kale's territory, was different. Every shadow could hide an enemy, every sound could be a warning. And yet, there was something undeniably powerful in the way the forest seemed to bend toward him, as if it recognized its master. Kale, he was already awake, standing a few paces away. His silhouette was tall, commanding, and even in the soft moonlight his presence filled the clearing. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he watched her, his storm-colored eyes unblinking, studying every movement. There was no malice there now, only caution and curiosity, curiosity that unnerved her as much as it intrigued her. "You slept lightly," he said at last, his voice low, almost a rumble. "I can see you felt the weight of the night even in sleep." Seraphine tightened her hold on the twins, her gaze never leaving his. "I do not trust easily," she said softly, "especially when danger is near." Kale, he inclined his head slightly, a small gesture that carried more meaning than words. "I do not expect you to," he replied. "You have reason, but you are not alone anymore. Not while I am here." The words were simple, but the weight behind them pressed on her chest. She knew he spoke as an alpha, a leader of warriors who had killed without hesitation. And yet he had spared her, protected her, even in the face of centuries-old hatred. Her mind tried to process the contradictions, fear and safety, danger and protection, the wild and the domestic, all tangled together in the figure before her. "Why?" she asked finally, unable to contain the question. "Why spare me, Kale? Why not finish what your pack came to do?" Kale, he walked closer, the ground seeming to bend beneath his steps. "Because what you carry, it is not just life. It is hope. A future that no one has dared to protect for generations." His eyes darkened with thought, the words heavy. "I do not act on instinct alone. I act on what must be preserved." Seraphine's heart pounded, and for a moment she felt the edge of fear slip into something else, something like trust. She did not know him, not truly, and yet she sensed an unspoken bond forming between them, fragile as a newly spun thread. And with that thread, a warning came unbidden: trust too soon and it could break. Kale, he gestured toward a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. "You must come with me," he said. "It is not safe here, and the twins are vulnerable. There are others, enemies, who will not hesitate to take them if given the chance." Seraphine hesitated. Leaving her sanctuary, her hiding place, was unthinkable, And yet, the truth was undeniable. The pack that had come to kill would not give up easily. She had already seen their hesitation and fear, but hesitation was fleeting among hunters. "I have nowhere else to go," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I will follow, but only because I must protect them." He nodded once, and without another word he led the way. The forest grew denser as they walked, the moonlight barely piercing the thick canopy. Seraphine's senses strained, attuned to every sound, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the distant howl of wolves. But Kale moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. He knew the forest as well as he knew the paths of his pack. Even when unseen dangers threatened, his presence radiated a strange security, and Seraphine could not help but notice it. After what felt like hours, they arrived at the edge of a clearing. A large stone structure rose before them, dark and imposing, yet elegant in its design. This was Kale's territory, the heart of the pack, a place where the ancient trees had been joined with stone to create a fortress alive with history and power. He paused at the entrance, glancing at Seraphine. "You will rest here," he said. "No one may enter without my command. You and the twins will be safe, but understand this: safety is not the same as freedom." Seraphine followed him inside, carrying the twins close to her chest. The air was cool, carrying the scent of earth, stone, and something older, ancient magic perhaps, lingering from centuries of pack rituals. The walls were lined with symbols, carvings of wolves in mid-hunt, their eyes gleaming as if alive. It was awe-inspiring and unsettling all at once. "You speak of destiny," Seraphine said cautiously as they moved deeper inside. "But how do I know I am ready for what is coming? I am not like you." He smiled faintly, a dangerous curve of his lips. "You are not like me," he agreed, "but you do not need to be. Strength comes in many forms. Some are born with it, some learn it, and some, like you, are chosen by life itself." His gaze softened as it fell on the twins. "They have chosen you, and so have I." The words echoed in her mind. Chosen. Kale had not merely saved her. He had claimed her in a way that transcended ownership, a recognition, a bond, a promise. And yet the weight of it pressed against her heart. She was not naive. She knew the responsibility she bore. This was not just about her life or even the twins. It was about clans, legacies, and powers older than any human memory. Night passed slowly. Seraphine did not sleep fully, her body tense as the twins shifted and stirred. He remained nearby, silent, yet present. He watched over them both, not as a guard, but as a protector whose intentions she could only guess at. There was a pull in his gaze, a mixture of authority and admiration, danger and something she could not name. By morning, Seraphine had learned a few things about this new world she had entered. Kale's pack was disciplined, yet loyal to a fault. They obeyed his commands without hesitation, but there was respect there too, a recognition of his fairness and his strength. And within the pack she saw glimpses of what could be, alliances, friendships, loyalty that could be cultivated if she found the right words, the right courage. He approached her at dawn, the first light of the sun catching the edges of his hair. "You will need to learn," he said, "to move, to speak, to command. Your position will not be safe simply because of who I am. The twins are precious, yes, but the world will challenge you, and the pack must accept you as their Luna." Seraphine's brow furrowed. Luna. The word held weight she did not yet understand. She had grown up hearing whispers of legends, tales of women who became leaders through birthright or choice. But she had never imagined that she herself would be called to such a role. And now here with Kale and the twins, the word felt like a chain binding her to a destiny she could neither escape nor fully comprehend. He sensed her hesitation. "Do not fear it," he said softly. "You have more strength than you know. You have endured alone in the wild, protecting yourself and others. The pack will test you, yes, but they will also learn to follow. And I will stand beside you always. That is my promise." Seraphine met his eyes, and for the first time she saw not just the alpha, not just the dangerous hunter, but the man beneath the armor of command. His gaze held admiration, restraint, and a deep, unspoken longing that mirrored her own confusion. She did not know how to respond, except to tighten her hold on the twins and nod, silently acknowledging the bond that was forming, fragile as it was. The day passed with instruction. Kale taught her how to move within the pack's territory, how to listen to the subtle shifts of energy, the sounds of the forest, the unspoken language of wolves and humans alike. Seraphine was cautious, hesitant at first, but slowly she began to understand, to feel the pulse of the territory, the rhythm of the pack, and the strange, almost magical bond that tied them all together. By nightfall, Seraphine had learned enough to feel some confidence. Yet confidence was tempered by the knowledge that enemies still lurked, shadows that would not rest. Kale returned to the clearing where she slept, kneeling beside her once more. The twins stirred, reaching tiny hands toward him, and for a moment Seraphine felt an unexplainable peace. "You are learning," he said softly, "and they will follow you. But remember this, their loyalty is fragile, built on respect, trust, and fear in equal measure. You must earn it every day, and your choices now will echo through generations." Seraphine, she closed her eyes, letting the twins rest against her chest. "I understand," she whispered. "I will protect them and I will be strong, not just for me but for them, for the pack. And for you." Kale's hand brushed hers briefly, a small, quiet touch that carried more meaning than words could ever hold. He did not smile, but his gaze softened, stormy eyes filled with admiration and caution. "Then we begin," he said. And as the moon rose high again, casting silver light across the clearing, the distant howl of a wolf echoed through the forest. It was a warning. It was a call. It was the first challenge of many. Seraphine held the twins close, her heart beating in time with theirs, and she realized with clarity, her life had changed forever. She was no longer merely a woman trying to survive. She was a Luna in training, a protector of the future, and bound irrevocably to an alpha who had the power to destroy or to save her. The forest seemed to close in around her, shadows thickening, whispers rising. Danger was coming. And the twins, sleeping peacefully for now, were at the center of a storm she could not yet control. The story had deepened, the path of destiny growing sharper with every step. And Seraphine knew, without doubt, that nothing would ever be the same again. The chains of fate had tightened, and the next challenge was already approaching. The first light of dawn seeped slowly through the trees, painting the forest in pale gold and silver. Seraphine, she stirred, the twins nestled against her chest, their tiny breaths a steady rhythm that grounded her amidst the growing tension. The night had passed quietly, yet she felt no peace. The forest was alive with whispers, shadows shifting as though they were aware of her presence. She could feel it, the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders, the responsibility of the twins, and the destiny that Kale had hinted at. Kale was already awake, standing at the edge of the clearing. His eyes followed her movements, always alert, always protective, yet never intrusive. There was a balance in his presence, a tension between dominance and restraint that both unnerved and fascinated her. He did not speak immediately, letting the forest and the quiet morning stretch between them, thick with meaning. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "You are learning quickly," he said, a faint edge of admiration in his tone. "The twins are safe while you are here, but safety alone will not be enough. Others will come, seeking what you carry." Seraphine's heart tightened. "I understand," she said, her voice steady despite the fear twisting in her chest. "I will protect them. I must." Kale stepped closer, his gaze resting on the twins. "They are more than children," he said. "They are symbols of a future no one has dared to believe in. They will need guidance, strength, and protection beyond anything you have known." She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. It was true. She had been preparing for survival her entire life, but this was something far greater. She was not just a woman trying to survive. She was a guardian, a Luna in training, and her choices now would shape the future of the packs. The morning passed with quiet instruction. Kale guided her through the rituals of the pack, the subtle signals, the ways to communicate without words, the language of dominance and respect. Seraphine was cautious, hesitant at first, but slowly she began to understand. Every gesture, every glance carried meaning. She was learning to move not just through space, but through the currents of influence, authority, and trust. As the sun climbed higher, a distant howl echoed through the trees. Kale's eyes darkened. "They are testing us," he said. "Rogue wolves, outlaws from other packs, they have sensed the twins. They will try to claim them." Seraphine's breath caught. She had imagined threats before, but never so tangible, so immediate. She tightened her hold on the twins, feeling their small, fragile forms against her. "Then we will fight," she said, her voice firm. "We cannot let them take what is ours." He studied her for a long moment, the storm in his eyes softened by something almost like pride. "Good," he said. "You are stronger than you realize." The afternoon was spent in preparation. Kale taught her how to move silently, how to listen for danger, how to anticipate attacks. He showed her the subtle ways of controlling energy, of projecting authority without aggression. Seraphine listened, absorbed every detail, and for the first time she felt a growing confidence. She could feel the threads of the pack responding to her presence, their instincts acknowledging her, though she was not yet fully Luna. That evening, Kale led her to a high ledge overlooking the forest. The wind swept through their hair, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and the sounds of the night creatures beginning their chorus. The twins were still asleep, swaddled safely in her arms, and she felt a deep, protective surge rise in her chest. "You are ready for the next step," Kale said, his voice almost a whisper. "You must begin to claim your place, not just beside me, but within the pack itself. They will test you. Some will respect you immediately, others will challenge you. You must be firm, patient, and fearless." Seraphine nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She had never led anyone before, had never been called to command. Yet standing there with Kale by her side, with the twins resting against her, she felt a flicker of determination. "I will do it," she said. "I will learn, I will protect them, and I will become what I must." Kale's gaze softened, the storm in his eyes giving way to something more profound, more human. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, and she felt a warmth that was both comforting and unsettling. "Then we begin," he said. Night fell, and the forest became alive with unseen eyes and whispered movements. Seraphine and Kale moved through the camp, unseen but always present, learning, observing, asserting their presence. The pack was cautious, sensing the shift in energy as Seraphine stepped into her role. Wolves, humans, allies, and potential threats all watched, tested, and evaluated. Suddenly, a sound broke the rhythm of the night, a sharp, threatening howl, followed by movement in the shadows. Kale's body tensed instantly. "They have come," he said. "Rogues, outsiders seeking the twins." Seraphine's pulse quickened, but she did not falter. Kale moved to position himself between her and the threat, his presence a shield of strength. She followed his lead, moving with the knowledge he had given her, projecting authority, confidence, and readiness. The rogue pack emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming, muscles coiled like springs ready to strike. They circled, testing, taunting, assessing the strength of the pair before them. Seraphine could feel their aggression, their intent, and she realized that this was not just a battle of strength, but of will. She would have to command, project authority, and protect without faltering. He stepped forward, his voice a low growl that carried across the clearing. "This ends now," he said. "Turn back or face the consequences." Some of the rogue wolves hesitated, their instincts conflicting with the clear command of the alpha. But others pressed forward, snarling, testing, daring them to act. Seraphine felt a surge of fear and resolve mingle, the twins' tiny movements against her chest igniting a fierce determination. "Stand with me," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "Protect them. Protect their future." Kale's eyes met hers, stormy and intense. "Together," he said. The rogue wolves lunged and the clearing erupted into motion. Kale moved with precision, commanding the space, protecting Seraphine and the twins. Seraphine, guided by his teachings and her own instincts, projected strength and authority, her voice carrying a commanding force that unsettled the attackers. Wolves faltered, some retreating, others growling, unsure how to respond to the unexpected power radiating from her. Amid the chaos, she felt Kale's presence beside her, not just as protector but as partner. They moved in sync, a dance of shadows and strength, instinct and awareness. Every step, every gesture, every command reinforced the bond forming between them, a bond that was at once professional, primal, and deeply emotional. The battle was brief, though intense. The rogue pack, realizing they were outmatched, slunk back into the forest, leaving only silence and the heavy scent of fear and tension behind. Seraphine's chest heaved with exertion, the twins safe, and she felt an unfamiliar surge of pride and exhilaration. She had faced the threat, survived, and even commanded presence in a way she had never imagined possible. He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "You did well," he said, his voice low and steady. "They will respect you now. They will follow you if not fully, at least in part. You are stepping into your role, Luna." Seraphine looked down at the twins, their tiny faces peaceful despite the danger they had just faced. A warmth filled her chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and something more, something deep and unspoken for Kale. "I am learning," she said softly. "I will protect them, and I will grow into what I must be." Kale's gaze lingered on her, and she felt the storm behind his eyes soften, revealing a human heart beneath the Alpha's armor. There was admiration, concern, and a strange, undeniable longing. "And I will stand beside you," he said. "Always." Night deepened and the forest settled into a tense calm. Seraphine held the twins close, feeling their warmth and breathing in the night air. She had learned something vital today. Strength was not just physical. It was courage, will, and the ability to inspire respect. And she had begun to find that strength within herself. Yet even as she felt the stirrings of confidence, the shadows remained. Danger was not gone, merely delayed. Enemies would return. Challenges would grow. And the twins, as small and fragile as they were, carried a destiny that would make them targets for those who feared change, power, or prophecy. Seraphine, she closed her eyes, holding the twins tighter. She felt he beside her, steady and unwavering, and she knew they were no longer simply allies. They were partners, bound by circumstance, trust, and the beginnings of something deeper, more intricate than either fully understood. The forest whispered around them, shadows stretching, leaves rustling, stars blinking in the dark sky. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf's howl carried through the night, a warning, a challenge, a reminder that their path was only beginning. And Seraphine understood, with a clarity that settled deep in her bones, that the true tests had not yet come. The twins, the pack, and her destiny as Luna were threads in a tapestry larger than herself, woven with danger, love, power, and sacrifice. The dance of shadows had begun, and the next step would demand everything she had, and more. The forest was silent as the moon rose high, casting silver light across the trees. Every leaf shimmered and shadows stretched long, moving like ghosts in the still night. Seraphine, she stood at the edge of the clearing, twins cradled against her chest, their soft breathing steady in the quiet. She felt the weight of the night, the weight of her choices, and the pull of destiny that had been her companion since the pack had arrived to change her life. He stood beside her, tall and unwavering, his eyes scanning the forest with a sharpness that spoke of centuries of experience. He had led the pack through countless battles, but tonight He moved with a careful caution that mirrored her own growing awareness. Something was coming, something that would test their bond, their strength, and the very future of the packs. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low, steady, carrying both command and concern. Seraphine nodded, her gaze firm, though a flutter of fear still stirred in her chest. "I have to be," she said softly. "Not just for me, for them, for the twins, for the pack, for what we are meant to become." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and grounding. "Then we begin," he said. The clearing ahead was alive with movement. Wolves from neighboring packs, some allied, some hostile, had gathered. Their eyes gleamed in the moonlight, reflecting curiosity, suspicion, and in some, open hostility. At the center of the assembly, older wolves, leaders who had once opposed Kale, watched, waiting for a sign of weakness. Seraphine drew a steady breath. This was her moment. The moment she would step fully into her role as Luna, not just beside Kale, but as a leader in her own right. She had trained, learned, and faced threats, but this challenge was different. It required more than strength. It required presence, authority, and a heart open enough to inspire loyalty. Kale, he stepped slightly behind her, his presence a shadow of protection but never dominance. He had guided her, taught her, and now he would let her rise. "Show them who you are," he said quietly. "Not just a woman, not just their protector, but their Luna." Seraphine straightened her back, holding the twins closer. Her voice, calm yet commanding, carried across the clearing. "I am Seraphine," she said. "I stand here not to conquer, not to threaten, but to protect what is sacred, our future. These twins are the hope of all our clans, and I will not allow fear or hatred to dictate their lives." There was a pause. The forest itself seemed to still, listening. Wolves shifted uneasily, some lowering their heads in respect, others bristling with hesitation. She could feel their thoughts, their instincts testing her, questioning whether she truly deserved the role she claimed. Kale he stepped forward, adding his presence to hers without speaking. Together, they were a force both of power and balance. Wolves sensed it, humans sensed it, even the wind seemed to carry their energy across the forest. Suddenly a challenge arose. A lone wolf, a rogue from a distant pack, lunged from the shadows, teeth bared and growl low. Its eyes glowed with malice, aimed at the twins, at Seraphine, at the unity that was forming before it. Seraphine's heart surged, fear and resolve intertwining. She did not flinch. "Back," she commanded, her voice carrying a sharpness that cut through the night air. The twins stirred but remained calm in her arms as though they trusted her instinctively. Kale moved beside her, silent and ready. The rogue wolf hesitated, sensing the bond and authority emanating from the two of them. Its stance faltered, and then, with a final growl, it backed away, slipping into the shadows from which it came. The clearing fell silent again, tension lingering but respect beginning to settle. Seraphine had claimed her place. She had faced a direct threat, stood firm, and her authority had been acknowledged. The older wolves, the leaders, now stepped closer, no longer with suspicion but with a cautious acceptance. Kale he lowered his hand to hers, their fingers brushing briefly, a silent acknowledgement of their partnership. "You are ready," he said softly. "The pack sees it now. The world sees it now. You are their Luna." Seraphine felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of relief, pride, and something deeper for Kale. He had trusted her, guided her, yet he had let her rise on her own. "It is not just me," she said. "It is all of us. The twins, the pack, even you. We are stronger together." The night deepened, stars twinkling above like a million eyes watching over them. Seraphine began to understand the truth Kale had hinted at from the very beginning. Strength was not in domination alone, but in balance, trust, and unity. The packs, once divided by blood feuds and ancient grudges, were now threads being woven together by her choices, by Kale's guidance, and by the presence of life she carried. A distant howl echoed across the forest, and Seraphine felt a thrill run through her. It was a warning, yes, but also a song of connection. Wolves howled in response, not in challenge but in acknowledgement. They had accepted her, not just as Kale's Luna but as a leader, a protector, a force to be reckoned with. Kale he turned to her, stormy eyes softened by admiration. "You have done more than survive," he said. "You have claimed your place. You have shown courage, wisdom, and strength. The twins, the pack, they are safer because of you." Seraphine looked down at the twins, their tiny hands reaching toward her, and felt a surge of protective love unlike anything she had ever known. "They are my world," she said, "and I will guard them with everything I am." Kale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "And I will guard you," he said, "not because you need it, but because it is my choice. Together, we are stronger than any threat, any prophecy, any shadow that may come." The night seemed to hold its breath as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of promise and challenge. Seraphine felt the bonds forming around her, the pack, the forest, Kale, the twins, and she understood, with a clarity that settled deep in her bones, that this was more than survival. This was legacy. This was destiny. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, larger than any rogue wolf, more deliberate than any ordinary threat. Seraphine's pulse quickened. Kale stiffened, his instincts alert. They were not alone. Someone or something was watching, waiting, testing the bonds they had just forged. Seraphine tightened her hold on the twins, feeling their warmth against her chest, and drew a deep breath. "We face it together," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Kale he nodded, stormy eyes scanning the darkness. "Always," he said. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with intent. The forest seemed to darken around it, and Seraphine felt the first true stirrings of fear since claiming her role. But she did not falter. The twins were safe. The pack acknowledged her authority, and Kale stood beside her, unyielding, protective, and resolute. The figure spoke, voice low and cold. "The prophecy, the twins, they belong to me." Seraphine's heart pounded, but she held her ground. "No," she said, her voice steady, commanding. "They belong to life, to hope, to the future. Not to fear, not to hatred. They belong to us. To the pack, and I will protect them." Kale moved forward, positioning himself beside her, a silent shield, a living barrier of strength and resolve. "You will not touch them," he said, his voice low, rumbling like distant thunder. "Not while we stand." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Shadows stretched and twisted, whispers rose in the wind, and the world itself seemed to pause, awaiting the clash of wills. Seraphine felt the twins stir against her chest, tiny hands moving as if sensing the danger, and she knew with certainty that she could not fail. "Then we fight," she said softly, yet every word carried authority. "For them, for the pack, for our future." The figure advanced, and Kale growled low, a sound that rippled through the clearing and into the hearts of every wolf present. Seraphine squared her shoulders, feeling power rise within her. Not just the power of instinct, but the power of choice, of courage, of the bond that united her, Kale, the twins, and the pack. And as moonlight bathed the clearing, silver and pure, she understood the truth of her destiny. This was not just survival. This was transformation. This was leadership. This was love in all its strength and complexity. The night would test them, the shadow would challenge them, but together they were unstoppable. The twins shifted gently, their eyes fluttering open. Seraphine looked at Kale and he nodded. They were ready. The forest held its breath, the wind stilled, and the first true battle of destiny began.